5 words leftists use to lie. Get ready to lose your freedom. Not just the thing, the word too. Leftists are flipping the word freedom to mean government control. The party of more government control is now the party of freedom, it says. Chris Hall wrote on Substack on August 24, 2024. Quote, "Freedom doesn't mean what you are likely thinking. Use of the term by progressives and the left carries a different implication." He was right. On the final night of their 2024 National Convention, the Democrats announced Kamala Harris' campaign would be about joy. And indeed, the speakers used the word joy 35 times that night. But they used the word freedom 94 times. That Democrats really want freedom is, of course, a lie. In a 2023 Real Clear Politics poll, 1/3 of Democrat voters said Americans have too much freedom. In an article in Reason titled "Democrats Aren't the Freedom Party," Liz Wolfe wrote, quote, "Party of freedom? Democrats make it hard for me to own a gun. They make it hard for me to get a gas stove or use the dishwasher I want to. Last year, the Democrats in my city tried to implement a tax on every single Amazon delivery." And of course, the leftist mass media immediately went along with the new meaning of freedom. No one in the mass media, or in academia or lexicography, questioned the lie, let alone opposed it. It was just like when the leftists changed the meaning of democracy to mean leftism, as in, we must protect our democracy, meaning we must protect leftism and the leftist regime from anyone who questions or opposes it. But freedom and democracy were far from being the first words that leftists switched the meanings of. By switching and conflating the definitions of important words, the leftists muddy the waters of public discourse. They make it harder to talk about and understand what's really going on, and easier to replace truth with lies. This is language control, and leftists are very good at it. Democracy and the people, as we pointed out in We, the People, They, the Government. Maybe no language has been so tortured by the leftists as the two words the people. Leftists have always equated the words the people with the government, implying that the people and the government are the same thing. So if the government controls all the means of production, then the people control all the means of production. But in reality, the opposite is true. When the government controls it, the people lose control of it, especially when the government has become as unaccountable as the U.S. government is now. People in the government may say that somehow you are them, but you are not them. Progressive? Woodrow Wilson was one of the first leftists to use control of the then-emerging mass media to twist and reverse the meanings of words. Like the Democrats of 2024, he distorted the meaning of the word freedom. A 2024 Wall Street Journal article was titled and subtitled, "Woodrow Wilson Redefined Freedom Long Before Kamala Harris. The Use of Government to Achieve Social or Distributive Justice by Directing Scarce Resources to Political Ends, Satisfying Interest Groups is an even older story. In Wilson's definition, to be free is to do whatever the wise politician thinks you should do to help society run smoothly." But Wilson didn't stop there. He reversed the meaning of the word progressive and turned it into a political label. By progressive, he meant the idea that the Constitution was antiquated and what was needed was more government. A government of elitist managers who controlled everything because they knew what was best. He slapped the label progressive on a jar containing the poison of leftism, and he reversed the meaning of progressive. Liberal or liberal. Fast forward to 1941. Wilson had run on the promise to keep America out of World War I. As soon as he was elected, he got America into World War I and expanded the federal government into hitherto and dreamt of progressive realms of unconstitutionality. In the 1930s, Franklin Delano Roosevelt took the U.S. beyond even Wilson big government policies and created the even more unconstitutional huge government New Deal. He was still a progressive. By 1939, many Americans were tiring of big government overreach and progressivism. In 1940, the only meaning of liberal in a political or governmental context was liberal. Noun, a person who believes in free enterprise, small government, and individual rights. A liberal was the opposite of a leftist, socialist, progressive. In 1962, Ludwig von Mises, in Liberalism, the Classical Tradition wrote, quote, "In the United States, liberal means today a set of ideas and political postulates that in every regard are the opposite of all that liberalism meant to the preceding generations." FDR wanted to avoid being called a leftist or socialist, so he changed the meaning of liberal. Here is where he did it. In a speech in 1941. "There are usually two general schools of political belief," Franklin D. Roosevelt said in 1941, "liberal and conservative. Liberals," the president continued, "understood that as new conditions and problems arise beyond the power of men and women to meet as individuals, it becomes the duty of the government itself to find new remedies with which to meet them. Conservatives," he said, "believed that there is no necessity for the government to step in. At least since 1932, the Democratic Party has been the Liberal Party, and the Republican Party has been the Conservative Party." After the speech, the leftist media immediately began to use the word liberal as Roosevelt had instructed them to. Leftism became liberalism. But by the 1980s, Americans had learned what FDR's liberalism really was. The word liberal was a slur, an insult. So in 1988, Ronald Reagan was being impolite by calling the liberals liberals when he said, quote, "The masquerade is over. It's time to use the dreaded L word to say the policies of our opposition are liberal, liberal, liberal." Of course, the leftists blame the fact that the word liberal itself had now become an insult on guess who? The right. In 2010, in a leftist BBC article titled "Liberal, Are We Talking About the Same Thing?" Michael Goldfarb said, quote, "The word liberal has been so debased in America by right-wing demagogues that liberals have for at least 2 decades preferred to call themselves progressives." And in 2002, a writer in the leftist LA Times had openly admitted that FDR, the leftist, had intentionally been flipping the meaning of liberal and proposed flipping it again. He wrote this in the process of suggesting that the leftists do it again and flip liberal yet again. Quote, "Democrats are now faced with two options. They can seek to redraw the political landscape and invent a new rhetorical dichotomy, as Roosevelt did in the 1930s. Or they can try to resuscitate liberalism, to reclaim the liberal tag." So, in our story of liberal so far, FDR reversed the meaning of liberal. A BBC leftist blamed it on the right, and an LA Times leftist admitted it was FDR who did it and suggested doing it again. So leftists are indeed flipping liberal again. Most 21st century dictionaries and encyclopedias describe liberal as meaning something to do with social justice and the Kamala Harris kind freedom. They want to make it seem as though all leftists of the past, from Karl Marx to Woodrow Wilson, were a good kind of liberals. In page 11 of the book, Why Liberals Win, Even When They Lose Elections, the leftist writer Stephen Prothero categorized Thomas Jefferson, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and Barack Obama together as famous American liberals who all practiced liberalism. They were all liberals who believed the same things, leftists said. Jefferson's beliefs about big government were the same as Obama's and FDR's. In a 2024 article titled "The Left's Assault on Language is an Assault on Freedom" in Mises Wire, Will Ferrell wrote, quote, "How can people who are intolerant and authoritarian at every turn call themselves liberal? How can people wanting to regress the United States to the collectivism of the past, as socialism and fascism both devolved to feudalism over time, call themselves progressives? How? By changing the meanings of words, that's how. The leftist media are constantly changing the meaning of words. In the hands of the leftist language controllers, the idea that two wrongs make a right became affirmative action. Taking trillions of dollars from productive Americans to make politicians rich became wealth redistribution to create equality, and so on. In the article, Language is Changing in America. Indeed, probably throughout the West. And the changes are not good. Naomi Wolf wrote in 2023, quote, "Neo-Marxist, feudalist, globalist oligarchy are deliberately driving artificial changes in language and language practices. Famously, George Orwell saw it all coming when he created a fictional, totalitarian doublespeak. Leftists have been making reality imitate art. It was nothing new. In 2021, the Wall Street Journal quoted Vladimir Lenin, "We can and must write in a language which sows among the masses hate, revulsion, and scorn toward those who disagree with us." Mass media weapons of destruction. Progressive liberal democracy, freedom, the public. In Elizabeth Smoots's Substack, she quoted Alexander Trachtenberg, U.S. Communist Party leader, quoted by Mary A. Nicholas, Paul Kengor, The Devil, and Bella Dodd. One Woman's Struggle Against Communism and Her Redemption, 2022. When we get ready to take the United States, we will not take it under the label of communism. We will not take it under the label of socialism. These labels are unpleasant to the American people and have been speared too much. We will take the United States under labels we have made very lovable. We will take it under liberalism, under progressivism, under democracy. But take it we will. Equality, diversity, racism, violence, genocide, gender, and on and on. Leftists twist and distort the meanings of all those words and more to turn them into lies. Ammunition for the leftists' big weapon of mass truth destruction. The mass media. Quoting the Wall Street Journal article again about Kamala Harris and her so-called freedom, the semantic obfuscations employed by today's progressives inculcate a political vision that has evolved from Wilson's. An enforced moral monoculture is now diversity. Excluding ideas that reject progressivism is inclusion. Quietly minding one's own business is violence. Refusing to discriminate on the basis of race is racism. Pro-Hamas demonstrators somehow think it is Israel, rather than Hamas itself, that seeks to enact genocide. Quietly minding your own business is not violence. That's the truth. Live and let live is a rightist idea. We, the right, are only in conflict with the left because the left attacks us in America with an endless stream of bad ideas and lies. Their underlying idea is always to give government more control and then to use government to control the rest of us. The right has the real freedom. Leftists want to force fake freedom on us. Government is not the source of freedom. We, the right, have the true freedom ideas, the freedom system.
Thank you for your interest in Rightful Freedom. Please help us grow by liking and subscribing and commenting. We would love your feedback and see more content at our website, rightfulfreedom.com.